Chapter 2. 24 hours later, Selby had completely forgotten Rue Barrée. During the week, he worked with might and main at the studio, and Saturday night found him so tired that he went to bed before dinner and had a nightmare about a river of yellow ochre in which he was drowning. Sunday morning, apropos of nothing at all, he thought of Rue Barrée, and 10 seconds afterwards he saw her. It was at the flower market on the Marble Bridge. She was examining a pot of pansies. The gardener had evidently thrown heart and soul into the transaction, but Rue Barrée shook her head. It is a question whether Selby would have stopped then and there to inspect a cabbage rose had not Clifford unwound for him the yarn of the previous Tuesday. It is possible that his curiosity was piqued, for with the exception of a hen turkey, a boy of 19 is the most openly curious biped alive. From 20 until death, he tries to conceal it. But, to be fair to Selby, it is also true that the market was attractive. Under a cloudless sky, the flowers were packed and heaped along the marble bridge to the parapet. The air was soft, the sun spun a shadowy lacework among the palms and glowed in the hearts of 1,000 roses. Spring had come, was in full tide. The watering carts and sprinklers spread freshness over the boulevard. The sparrows had become vulgarly obtrusive, and the credulous Seine angler anxiously followed his gaudy quill floating among the soapsuds of the lavoirs. The white-spiked chestnuts, clad in tender green, vibrated with the hum of bees. Shoddy butterflies flaunted their winter rags among the heliotrope. There was a smell of fresh earth in the air, an echo of the woodland brook in the ripple of the Seine. The swallows soared and skimmed among the anchored river craft. Somewhere in a window, a caged bird was singing its heart out to the sky. Selby looked at the cabbage rose and then at the sky. Something in the song of the caged bird may have moved him, or perhaps it was the dangerous sweetness in the air of May. At first, he was hardly conscious that he had stopped. Then he was scarcely conscious why he had stopped. Then he thought he would move on. Then he thought he wouldn't. Then he looked at Rue Barrée. The gardener said, "Mademoiselle, this is undoubtedly a fine pot of pansies." Rue Barrée shook her head. The gardener smiled. She evidently did not want the pansies. She had bought many pots of pansies there, 2 or 3 every spring, and never argued. What did she want, then? The pansies were evidently a feeler toward a more important transaction. The gardener rubbed his hands and gazed about him. "These tulips are magnificent," he observed, "and these hyacinths." He fell into a trance at the mere sight of the scented thickets. "That," murmured Rue, pointing to a splendid rose-bush with her furled parasol. But in spite of her, her voice trembled a little. Selby noticed it, more ashamed to him that he was listening, and the gardener noticed it, and, burying his nose in the roses, scented a bargain. Still, to do him justice, he did not add a centime to the honest value of the plant, for after all, Rue was probably poor, and anyone could see she was charming. 50 francs, mademoiselle." The gardener's tone was grave. Rue felt that argument would be wasted. They both stood silent for a moment. The gardener did not eulogize his prize. The rose tree was gorgeous, and anyone could see it. "I will take the pansies," said the girl, and drew 2 francs from a worn purse. Then she looked up. A teardrop stood in the way, refracting the light like a diamond. But as it rolled into a little corner by her nose, a vision of Selby replaced it. And when a brush of the handkerchief had cleared the startled blue eyes, Selby himself appeared, very much embarrassed. He instantly looked up into the sky, apparently devoured with a thirst for astronomical research, and as he continued his investigations for fully 5 minutes, the gardener looked up too, and so did a policeman. Then Selby looked at the tips of his boots. The gardener looked at him, and the policeman slouched on. Rue Barrée had been gone some time. "What," said the gardener, "may I offer monsieur?" Selby never knew why, but he suddenly began to buy flowers. The gardener was electrified. Never before had he sold so many flowers, never at such satisfying prices, and never with such absolute unanimity of opinion with the customer. But he missed the bargaining, the arguing, the calling of heaven to witness. The transaction lacked spice. "These tulips are magnificent." "They are," cried Selby warmly. "But alas, they are dear." "I will take them." "Do you?" murmured the gardener in perspiration. "He's madder than most Englishmen." "This cactus is gorgeous." "Alas, send it with the rest." The gardener braced himself against the river wall. "That splendid rosebush," he began faintly. "That is a beauty. I believe it is 50 francs. He stopped, very red. The gardener relished his confusion. Then a sudden cool self-possession took the place of his momentary confusion, and he held the gardener with his eye and bullied him. "I'll take that bush. Why did not the young lady buy it? Mademoiselle is not wealthy." "How do you know?" "Dame, I sell her many pansies. Pansies are not expensive." "Those are the pansies she bought?" "These, monsieur, the blue and gold." "Then you intend to send them to her?" "At midday, after the market." "Take this rosebush with them, and," here he glared at the gardener, "don't you dare say from whom they came." The gardener's eyes were like saucers, but Selby, calm and victorious, said, "Send the others to the Hôtel de Saint-Nom, 7 Rue de Tournon. I will leave directions with the concierge." Then he buttoned his glove with much dignity and stalked off, but when well around the corner and hidden from the gardener's view, the conviction that he was an idiot came home to him in a furious blush. 10 minutes later he sat at his room in the Hôtel du Saint-Nom, repeating with an imbecile smile, "What an ass I am! What an ass!" An hour later found him in the same chair, in the same position, his hat and gloves still on, his stick in his hand. But he was silent, apparently lost in contemplation of his boot toes, and his smile was less imbecile, and even a bit retrospective.